Hello Internet, welcome back to the Experimental Cataclysm. If you don't know, this is a show where we talk about some of the changes, updates, and new content that is coming to the experimental version of Cataclysm, or has come from the experimental version over the last couple of weeks. Now, it's been about 3 weeks since we did a show. You probably saw a spoiler at the beginning of this episode. There is a new monster, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit, so if you don't want that spoiled, you should look elsewhere. As far as I know, that is the only new content that we will be covering, but the show does have, mild spoilers for that kind of stuff. Also, you should have seen a timestamp at some point. The timestamps will also be listed in the description below. If they're not on screen, it's because there's too many, but you can find them in the description down below. If you're interested in only a particular thing, you can go down there and find what you're looking for. We're just going to jump into it. Now, the reason we haven't done a show is that it's mostly been bug fixes over the last couple of weeks, or at least that is what it looked like to me. There was nothing new, really huge content-wise that really drew my attention. So it's mostly little things that we're going to be talking about today, many of which are much needed. Like I said, bug fixes, but they're not huge impacts on the gameplay. And there's no particular order that we're going to be going in this week. We're just going to go. So first up here we have two issues that I complained about in my current Let's Play, quite a bit actually complained about them. Number one is the fixing of firewood. So there was, after the transition to 1 second turns, the firewood was being consumed much more rapidly than it was before. And you probably noticed this in game because planks and splintered wood were being churned into the fire every 5 minutes or so. This has been remedied by Leo Sky here. Specifically has fixed wood burning. Whether this extends to other items, I don't think that it does. I think that this is explicitly for wood. In fact, yes, it is only wood that has been affected by this. There was some discussion over what exactly the rate of consumption should be, and they've dialed it in. I will say it does seem to be about 30 minutes per plank, although, I shouldn't even say that because I'm not 100%. But that's the metric that they have used here, and then it was tweaked slightly with Kevin, and then we're having some discussion. So firewood should be consuming at a much slower rate again, much more tolerable, much more understandable. And the other thing I complained about, these were both my issues that I opened on GitHub, was the fix for metal sawing. Metal sawing was taking just a few seconds, which we saw in our current Let's Play in the Apartment Rat series, and it's been changed. It's been fixed as far as I know. I haven't actually been anywhere with metal sawing anytime recently, but it looks like they've increased things. This change from 2 turns to 2 moves has remedied most of that issue, so should be fixed. Nice to see those fixes. Next we have simple vehicle auto driving. This is the only thing today where we're probably going to look at it in the game. We'll have some footage here in a moment, but the gist of it is that you can auto move with a vehicle. It's a little buggy. It makes wide turns. It's a little bit. It's a bit dumb. It sticks to. He says that this is David P.W. Brown again, the person who implemented the auto move for walking. He specifically says that it will stick to low speeds and that it's a bit dumb. It can't avoid obstacles, things like that. Now, I haven't actually noticed it sticking to low speeds. It seems like it continues at whatever speed I was at, which can be pretty dangerous. And between the wide turning radius, it turns a bit late, things like that. This is not perfect. They specifically ask if someone can help them with it. But the fact that they've done it at all is amazing because so many people want simple auto driving, and even though it's simple, it adds something that was much desired and can help a lot in situations where you have long stretches of road that you don't necessarily want to sit there pushing the wait button while you slowly drive down the road. This can take a lot of the key presses out of that. So let's look at that in the game. Okay, so here we've set up our random, my test character. We're in a vehicle. We're on a relatively long stretch of road with nothing on it. However, I've specifically chosen a road that has many turns. And so what we're going to do is we're going to begin driving. I apologize if you can hear keyboard sounds. I don't have a separate surface for my mic, so you may hear some noise in the background. I apologize for that. We'll start up our sports car, and what we're going to do, the same as the auto move, we're going to select a location that we want to travel to. We will press the capital W, and it will highlight our route. I've changed my dark blue color to teal, which is also why my rivers look the way that they do. But this is a little bit more visible. And if we press W again, it will confirm our route and we will head out. Now, before we do this, I want to ask you to specifically watch the way that the vehicle turns. This is the only real issue I've seen with the vehicle. In fact, before we do this, we're going to get up. Let's just put it at 12 miles an hour and see if it changes our speed or anything like that. So we're going to confirm this. Keep an eye on how it overcorrects and turns a bit late. You'll see it weaves around a little drunkenly. Kaboom! No, we can ignore kabooms. And here, in fact, I didn't realize there was a vehicle here. We've canceled our auto drive because it does not know how to avoid this particular obstacle. And you'll see it canceled our auto drive at 0 miles per hour. So we didn't collide, which is great. And we're going to, that's reverse. Let's drive straight. So we'll pass this particular obstacle and we'll continue up to town. I don't know what it just did. Ignore. I'm not sure what's kabooming. Oh, a chicken walker. Yes, let's stop. Okay, so I didn't realize this was here, or I would have never come in this direction. Chicken walker. Yep. So we're going to turn around. Oh, we're going very fast, actually. Going to turn around. We're going to pass this vehicle again, and we'll go back. This time I'm going to crank up our speed to around 60, and we're going to hit this auto drive and see how it handles such a high speed. You'll see it exacerbates the overcorrecting and things, but it did drop our speed down to about 12 miles an hour. So I don't know, I've had some issues with it. I don't want to go, I already said about it weaving and having some issues. I don't want to badmouth it because I think this is ultimately a very good change or a very good addition to the game. The only thing is that it's fundamental. It's the base level of what it is. It definitely needs refined. Even David P.W. Brown has said that. But I think that this is an excellent step. I think they did very well with implementing something that is reasonable. And if you're, say, going from here, from our current location to this location, say your base is here, I think it's perfectly fine to extend that out here and have it auto drive. It saves you key presses. It doesn't put you in any particular danger, to my knowledge. I'm not sure how it interacts with safe mode. I imagine it's the same as the Automove function, where it will pull you out of safe mode. What the heck is this? FEMA camp. Okay, well, I'm easily distracted, but you know what I'm saying. So if there's long stretches of road, this can save you some of that effort, some of that babying of when you just want to go from point A to point B. It's clear, it's mostly safe. You just want to go. I think it's great. It probably will get refined over time. I imagine it's a work in progress that, or maybe not a work in progress, but definitely something that's going to be tweaked and improved upon in the future. So I wanted to mention that because we talked about Automove previously, and people really wanted vehicle Automove, which is now at a base level implemented in the game. So big shout outs to David P.W. Brown for doing that work. Hooray! Next up, we have a change from Kevin today. Basically, fumaroles and the Rift specials have been removed from the game. These are, so if you think, so the lava, basically you've seen these seams of lava in the game. Random crack in the ground with lava, as well as hellmouths, which I'm not familiar with, but were addressed by this. The basic logic is that just doesn't really make sense that they're in the game. They're not really fully created. They were just kind of existing. Like, you can dig under the ground directly beneath the lava. It's not underground. It doesn't extend through the earth. It just didn't really make sense that they were part of the game, so they were removed. I have seen some discussion about this since this has been changed, but I really don't see an issue with this. I just wanted to mention it because people are used to seeing lava. Someone did say, like, oh, well, now I can't get sulfur, which I didn't know you could get sulfur from lava, but apparently you could, and this is definitely going to impact your ability to do so, although sulfur is still available, I believe, in pretty high quantities in labs. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, but wanted to point it out because we've all seen, a lava seam here or there. They never really made sense. They spawned in weird locations. I remember not that long ago I found one right in the middle of an electrical store or an electronics store, and nothing was on fire. It had no impact on the world around it. It just was there, And so these were removed. Who cares? I think it's a good change. I think, it's better to put something in the game that's refined. And when there are things in the game like the lava seams that they don't really make sense, they're not really a complete concept, it kind of pulls down the quality of the game as a whole. So I don't have an issue with this. I think that this is a fine change. Next, from Denton, which, I don't know who this individual is. I guess they've committed previously, or it would say this is their first pull request. But I'm down with any Denton. JC was my homie. But anyway, this overhauls and adds missing CBM descriptions. It's pretty basic as far as things go, but it's one of those things where, I wanted to point this out because this is a change that anyone who's listening to this, you could have done this. This is very much just finding an item that doesn't necessarily have a description or has a sort of messed up description. Some of the grammar is not perfect in the game. And they made some mild changes. In other instances, they added descriptions where there wasn't really a meaningful description before. And you'll see it's just, taking a line that already exists and changing some things so that it's a little bit more accurate, a little bit more meaningful. It's a very simple kind of change. Anyone listening to this can do this kind of work for the project. And it ultimately builds the world and makes things a little more sensible. So for instance, the Power Storage CBM, the compact Bionics module developed by Doubletech Industries as a replacement for the highly successful Power Storage CBM. It increases the user's power capacity by 250 units. Now, this is great because it provides some background to the world, referencing a Doubletech Industries, and it also makes an implication about how common these things were because it references them being highly successful products. And so it's a relatively small change, again, that anyone could have done, but it builds the world, and it's something that, I don't know, I really love when I see stuff like this because I think it encourages people who don't really necessarily know how to mod or do crazy amounts of C++ or whatever. This is literally just text, Not to belittle what you've done, Denton, but it's a relatively simple thing, and my goal is that more people will see this kind of stuff and think, oh, I could do that. I can contribute. So if you're considering contributing, you should give it a shot. They're very kind about things like that. Next up, we have military maps no longer reveal farm silos and animal shelters. I saw this issue a little while ago and thought about trying to fix it, but I didn't really understand what things should be changed to. But the gist of it is that silos were being revealed by a military map, but that included silos at farms when it was meant to be like missile silos. Similarly, animal shelters were being revealed because it was supposed to reveal evac shelters, and they had the same name, I believe. So this fixes that. Shouldn't reveal farm silos or animal shelters anymore. Pretty basic as things go. So yeah. Next, we're going to be talking about skeletal shocker zombies. This was added to the game about 2 weeks ago. This is the monster we were discussing earlier. The gist of it is that it's supposed to be a skeletonized shocker zombie, which will trade mobility for skeletal-style armor. I am a bit confused about some of the choices made here, which is interesting. Okay, so I might edit out a bunch of what I've said. Basically, skeletal shocker zombies now exist. They're slightly more armored. They are a little bit slower, and they glow a little bit less. They also have the bite attack, although I doubt you'll be meleeing them. Most people don't melee the shockers. And the other thing worth noting is that they have these civilian CBMs as opposed to, I think the shocker brutes have science, or no, they have a special CBM group that's meant for things coming from the, I can't remember what the name of the item group is. It's basically like for special creatures that come, like zombie shocker, like upgrade shocker brutes and technicians share that item group. But this is the civilian item group, which I think the baseline shocker uses the civilian CBMs. Yeah, so I don't know what to say about this. I was kind of all over the place in my description. I would show you the gameplay just to show you what they look like. Currently, they're just a blue Z, unless you manually update your tile set, which I don't do. So I don't know if they have a new sprite or not. Not much I have to say about them, I guess. I haven't seen them in game. I haven't had to play with them yet, so I just don't know how I feel about it. I'm fine with the idea of a shocker zombie that is also armored like the skeleton zombies. I don't know about the execution necessarily. I mean, I'm not trying to bash this individual, AOAE. I'm not trying to say you did a bad thing. You know, that's not what I'm saying. I don't know enough about shocker zombies to make a good comparison. So I could be completely off base. So I'll probably edit out a lot of my commentary because I just don't know enough about them. So, but they exist, and you probably will bump into them eventually. Next, we had some changes. I don't know what to call this individual. Seen them on Discord a couple times as well. I'm just gonna say Korg. I want to call you Corgi because I love corgis, but it doesn't seem proper to call someone a dog. So Korg it is, or Curtis apparently. I'll just call this person Curtis. Hope you're fine with me being on a first name basis. Anyway, got a couple changes to hunger. The one I really wanted to point out is that previously you would get stat penalties if you were at the normal weight. You probably noticed normal, overweight, underweight, things like that in your character screen, in your at screen, which is displayed right here. Previously you were getting some stat debuffs when you were normal as opposed to overweight. And this has been changed so it only appears when you are emaciated or worse. And if your character's emaciated, you kind of deserve to have a pretty severe stat penalty, and here you'll see it's quite significant, as it should be. There were other changes to hunger, but this is the one I really wanted to point out because this is one I was bumping into myself, and this has been from Curtis here has done this work, so wanted to point that out. Next, I also wanted to point out some stamina changes. So a couple weeks ago when we had our last episode, I pointed out that I thought that the stamina changes were enough that you maybe shouldn't update your game. They were pretty game breaking. The way the winded effect specifically was just killing characters. This was addressed pretty quickly, but there have also been, over the course of the last couple of weeks, smaller additions to this, changes to this that make it even more tolerable, even better. So mostly it seems like it's done by Kevin. I know that Nexus was the one who initiated this kind of stamina rework, and they've put in work to do things. But it seems like Kevin has been the one doing some of this stuff. So for instance, see here, Nexus fixed the muscle-powered vehicles, which we talked about. Kevin has ensured that long actions never excessively drain stamina, has also fixed the stamina expenditure while pulping bodies. And then finally, they capped the duration of the winded effect. All of these things together has really made stamina a lot more tolerable. I still see people on the forum as well as on Discord complaining about this stamina, how stamina is just too much. It depletes too quickly, and then they get pain, and then because they're in pain, they're slow and they're weak. And it's like, okay, I think these changes are very good. I think a reduction to stamina is fine. I've been in fights in my life. If you've ever been in a fight, after like a minute, you're exhausted. Like, it's a lot of work to actually grapple and fight with someone. I imagine it would be no different when you're fighting a zombie. Similarly, running around, bashing a corpse to the point where it's dismembered, essentially, is kind of would do a lot of stamina. So I don't fully understand a lot of the complaints. I think people get upset because they expect their character to be a walking tank, and it's really not appropriate. You're meant to be, just like with the health changes, you're meant to be vulnerable. Your stamina, instead of thinking, oh man, I run out of stamina all the time, that freaking sucks, I hate it. Instead of doing that, maybe think, well, all the stuff I'm doing, maybe I should approach it a little more tactfully, with a little bit more tactics, instead of just running in and doing what I feel like I should be able to do. So I love the stamina changes. I love the healing rate change. And it's being improved. It's not game breaking like it was. It's been resolved. I just don't understand why people are so upset about it. And while I'm looking at a big list of things, I wanted to give a shout out to Magiclysm. So if you don't know, Magiclysm is a fantasy kind of overhaul type mod, full conversion type thing. I guess not a full conversion, but it's a fantasy mod for Cataclysm. It adds things like casting spells. I know they added trolls pretty recently. Was it trolls, ogres, something? I think it was trolls. They added owlbears, things like that to the game, as well as the ability, of course, a system for spell casting. And I wanted to talk about Magiclysm. I haven't played it. I've been tempted to play it, but I've seen a lot of other people talking about it. I know that I think most of them are from Korg, I think is the one who's primarily made this, but obviously there are a lot of other people putting things in, Foulman, Bourgeoisie, things like that. People like that have also been putting things in, but it's mostly Curtis's project, and I just wanted to point it out because if we look here, 81 pull requests for this Magiclysm mod. It is supported by C++ code. It has mod aspects to it. It's a very big thing that a lot of people have been excited about, have been playing a lot. And I just wanted to give a shout out because it's getting a lot of love from both the creator, who's updating this on a pretty much daily basis. In fact, if we look here, it's multiple PRs in the last couple of, and it's obviously getting a lot of love from the community. So I just wanted to give a shout out. If you haven't checked it out, you should, maybe. I'm going to in the near future, I think. So yeah, just wanted to give a quick shout out to that. Next, we have a additional knife spear. So we're all familiar with the old knife spear. It was nerfed a while ago, so it's flimsy. It's very hard to use more than 2 zombies at a time, and then the spear breaks and you're angry. Well, Urk has added an upgraded version of that. Instead of being like a spike that's been stuck to a stick, this is actually requires a full, like a real knife that bolts to a tang, could be taken off the tang, slotted and bolted to a split stick, then had the split reinforced. So it's an upgraded, more sturdy version of the knife spear. It's not fragile, but it does require, as far as I know, a real knife, and there you go. I don't know how to feel about this. I think that so many people already use the spears. I think that that's why they were nerfed in the first place, was to encourage people to try other weapons. I don't know what we could do to shift away from spear meta, but I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, it's cool. It's a cool upgrade. There's no reason that a survivor wouldn't be able to make this item. And so for that reason, I think it fits fine because a survivor would have the know-how and the expertise, at least, to make something a little sturdier and more reliable. But I can't help but think that this is just going to encourage more people to ignore other weapons and only use spears. So kind of, not trying to detract from someone who put the work in, not trying to badmouth Urk or anything. It's not, it's not his fault that that's the meta right now, is that everybody uses spears all the time. But I do wish we could transition to where some of the other weapons were more viable. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But so this happened. You probably will want this because everyone uses spears, and you're probably very glad to have a spear that's not flimsy in the early game. Next, from another simulacrum, we have prevent fire from spreading through non-flammable tiles. Now I want to point out, I don't know this tile set. If you want, you can find the link to this in the description down below. If you want to look at this yourself, you can. I don't know the tile set. It's a little confusing for me to look at this and understand what is happening. But basically, houses and things should burn less like they used to. I remember when I first went to the forum, one of the first posts I ever made, I had started a fire out in the grass, and it had spread all the way to a superstore and burned down the entire building in like it spread from tile to tile through the walls in a matter of seconds. And I was like really upset by that because I had lost the looting opportunity. And so what this seeks to address is to make non-flammable tiles so that it's less likely, I don't know if it's less likely or impossible to spread through non-flammable tiles. But it should help with situations like what I described. Here we see, I just don't know what this tile set, I don't know what to think. It looks like it's burning everything, but it's not penetrating this exterior wall. So I don't know. We'll have to play with it. We'll have to see how fire goes in the game to see how much of an impact this has. I think it's great, though. I think it's kind of silly that concrete walls and things like that, like in the labs and refugee centers, would burn so quickly. So it's definitely an improvement. No matter how it functions, it's got to be an improvement over burning through concrete in a matter of seconds. So props for that. And then finally we have, so if you've noticed, things were displaying as forever. When you try to consume perishable food items, it would say it would last forever, or more than forever, or less than forever. This was a bug connected to a certain time frame, 248 days apparently. And this was an issue because we had things that were perishable displaying as forever, which implies that they're not perishable. So it's a relatively small change, but it is something that you've noticed by now, that your food is no longer displaying as forever, which is great. So thanks to Branham for that. And it's their first pull request. Hey, good job. Thanks for contributing. So yeah, there you go. And that's probably going to do it for this episode. I feel a little off today. I don't know how well this episode went compared to some of the older ones. Not a lot of footage, not a lot of new content, mostly bug fixes and general quality of life stuff. So as always, thanks to the contributors and the developers for putting together this incredible game that we all enjoy so much. And I will be back in the near future with hopefully some more exciting stuff for us to talk about. For now, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll be back with more in the near future.